Hello and welcome to The Critique. So we are looking at a massive submission today, a full English learning system by Xingjiang Zhu.
It's incredibly ambitious. It claims to get a learner to a 20,000 word vocabulary in 3 years using a novel, this blind listening method, and a concept called word ecology.
Yeah, the scale is just huge. And that mother tongue approach is fascinating. But, the question is always whether the theory holds up in practice.
Right, and that's a good place to start. Let's dig into that first pillar, the word ecological system.
The idea that words have this logical coordinate system.
Exactly. And here's our first point for refinement. While the word ecological system is a really creative associative memory tool, it risks conflating a mnemonic device with strict linguistic science.
And that could confuse some learners, right? The more analytical ones?
It definitely could. I mean, the weakness here is that it presents this associative logic, these patterns created for memory, as if it's absolute scientific fact.
Can you give an example of that?
Sure. So the material groups words like restaurant, aura, and oral under a golden air hearing umbrella. Or it'll connect spot and blot using a P versus B symmetry theory.
Which is a cool internal logic.
It's a very cool internal logic, but it's not an external truth. And if you're a learner who knows a little bit about etymology, you might hear that, and it could feel like pseudoscience.
You'd lose trust if you go look up rem and lim and find out they have totally different roots.
Your trust in the system is shot, exactly. So the suggestion is to be really explicit about this. Frame these groupings as associative memory bridges or, mnemonics.
Just be honest about it.
Be honest. Tell the learner, look, these words aren't historically related, but we're going to hack your brain and link them this way. If you let them in on the trick, it works. If you call it science, they might call you out on it.
Okay, let's make that concrete. The notes had a whole section on the quo family of words. How does that play out here?
Perfect example. So the material links quote, query, quest, even ventriloquist.
All under to say.
All under to say or speech. And, eloquent and ventriloquist, that fits. That works etymologically. But then it pulls in words like sequester and perquisite.
Sequester. That means to hide something away. It feels like the opposite of speaking.
It is. And the logic it uses to connect them is a huge stretch. It says sequester is about seeking isolation, and seek is related to quest, which is related to question.
Wow, that's like 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon for words.
It really is. And as a memory hook, fine. But as science, it fails. So the advice is to just flag it. Say, okay, we're stretching the logic here to help you remember, instead of pretending it's a solid rule.
It builds that trust back up. What about the rim family? I saw that one too.
Yeah, lim, rim, brim, brink, fringe. Again, very creative, but the suggestion here is to clarify how the learner should use the grouping. Is this about spelling? Is it about meaning?
Because a limb is very different from a rim.
Totally different. So explain the association. Say that brim adds this idea of overflow to the edge, while fringe uses the F sound to evoke flying or hanging. Give them the nuance. Don't just give them a list of words that sound alike.
That's very clear. Okay, let's shift to the philosophical core of the system. This concept of body sense or qigong.
Right, this is the heart of the whole thing. The idea that you feel language in your gut, your right brain, instead of processing it logically with your left brain.
Like muscle memory? The notes mentioned basketball players and the fight or flight response as examples.
Yes, and that brings us right to our second critique. The integration of body sense is a really strong hook, conceptually, but the explanation focuses way too much on the definition of the feeling and not the actual mechanism for achieving it.
So it's too much what and not enough how.
Exactly. It's great to talk about goosebumps or an athlete's instinct, but imagine you're the student. You're sitting there with headphones on. How do you actually know if you're using your logical brain or your body sense?
There's no feedback loop.
No feedback loop at all. You might just be translating really, really fast in your head and think it's intuition. It's a huge practical gap.
Okay, so that's the weakness. How do we fix that? What's the suggestion?
We need to add specific self-assessment metrics, check-ins. We have to give the learner a litmus test to see if they're actually engaging that visceral brain.
Gamify the feeling.
Yes, gamify Tigwagon. Let's look at the story with the characters Emily and Edward. The text tells us that repetition becomes unconscious.
Right.
But we need to show it. Use the narrative to describe that specific feeling of not translating in your head anymore.
Like when you see a stop sign, you don't think that sign is red. Red means stop. You just stop.
Precisely that. And the material uses that great bicycle analogy. So let's create an exercise that forces the learner to, let go of the handlebars.
And how do you do that with just audio?
Speed. You play a clip at 1.5 or even 2 times speed. Your logical, translating brain just can't keep up with that pace. It'll crash.
But if you're using body sense?
If you're using body sense, you just let the meaning wash over you and you can follow it. That speed cost is the metric. If you can keep up, you pass. You've achieved it. It makes it a measurable skill, not just a philosophy.
I love that. It's so actionable. Okay, so let's talk about the novel itself, New Harbor City Dreams, which is the vehicle for all this.
A huge vehicle. 20,000 words, a story that spans a century, characters named Alex, Phoenix, Charlie. It's a massive undertaking.
It sounds really compelling, but you flagged an issue with how the vocabulary is actually delivered in the story.
I did, and this is our third point. The use of a novel is innovative, for sure, but the sheer density of synonyms in certain scenes threatens to disrupt the narrative immersion that's so essential for learning.
So the teaching goal is getting in the way of the story.
It's actively sabotaging the story. You're trying to create this movie in the mind, right? You want the reader to get lost in the scene. But you can't get lost if the author is just dumping a page of the thesaurus on you in one paragraph.
It pulls you right out of the moment.
Completely. You stop feeling the story and you remember you're studying. I think the dishwashing scene was a perfect example of this.
Oh, yeah.
Dishes, gravy, crusted, speck, and gleaming all in 2 sentences.
That doesn't sound like a story. It sounds like a shopping list for dirt.
It's exactly that. It feels like the author had a checklist of words to get through. The suggestion here is to space those ecological word families out. Weave them across different emotional beats instead of clustering them.
So how would you actually do that with the dishwashing scene?
Well, you break it up. You have Smudge and Grease appear when he's first struggling with the plates. Maybe he's frustrated. Then something else happens, a bit of dialogue. And later, when his boss comes to check his work, that's when you use words like gleaming or speck.
Ah, in the context of inspection.
Right, you separate them so each word serves the story at a different moment. The reader can visualize the grease, then the plot moves, then they visualize the clean plate. The story gets to breathe.
That makes so much sense. I think the childbirth scene had a similar issue, didn't it?
A big one. This should be a super emotional, high-stakes scene with Phoenix and Alex, but the narration gets totally bogged down with obstetrician, perinatal, maternity, gynecologist, pareidonia, lateral incision, surgical battery, forceps.
Whoa, that sounds less like a dramatic novel and more like a medical chart.
It's a textbook, and it kills the body sense we were just talking about, because your brain immediately switches into analytical mode trying to process all these technical terms. You stop caring about the characters.
So what's the fix?
You give the words to the characters. Weave them into dialogue.
So the doctor shouts something about the forceps or a lateral incision.
Exactly. Have Phoenix feel the pareidonia, the pain. If the words come from a character's needs in that moment, they feel organic. If they just come from the narrator describing a room, it feels like a vocabulary dump.
Right. Okay, this connects perfectly to the last pillar. The whole blind listening method.
Yeah, the idea that the user just listens to these tracks over and over, up to 1,000 times.
And the material justifies this by citing the 8 model operas from China's past, saying people learned them by heart because they had no other choice but to listen.
They did, but that historical context is key. And that leads to our final point. The reliance on massive repetition is scientifically grounded, but it risks a really high attrition rate because of, modern attention spans.
The weakness being that today's learners have a million other choices. They're not a captive audience like the one for the model operas.
Not at all. They have podcasts, music, YouTube, everything. Relying on boredom or force to make something stick just isn't a viable strategy anymore. If a student zones out on the 50th listen, they're not learning anything. It's just background noise.
Okay, so the discipline is good, but we need to make it engaging. What's the actionable suggestion?
We have to introduce active engagement techniques into the blind listening. You can't just ask them to listen passively for hours. We need to gamify it.
The system has that 3-pass method. English, 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 Chinese, Chinese, English. How would you gamify that?
So instead of just listening on the English pass, ask the learner to shadow, to speak along with the audio. That engages the mouth, the ears, the brain.
Makes it active.
Totally. And on another pass, like the Chinese to English one, they could try to predict the next word or phrase before the narrator says it. It turns passive listening into an active game of beat the narrator.
Oh, that's clever. It keeps you leaning forward. What about the speed settings? The material mentioned 1x and 2x speed.
That's the other tool. Use it as a cognitive stress test, just like we talked about for body sense. This is how you address the I+1 input hypothesis. The difficulty of the text is fixed, but you can vary the difficulty of the delivery.
So it's not just for saving time.
No, it's for forcing muscle memory. If you can understand it at 2x speed, you've mastered that section. It creates a clear level up moment that just listening over and over lacks. It turns a chore into a challenge.
And that gives the user a sense of agency, which is what keeps them coming back.
That's what prevents them from quitting. If I'm just sitting here listening, I get bored. If I'm trying to pass a speed test, I'm engaged.
Perfect. Let's do a quick recap. This is an incredible system, really brilliant in its conception, but it just needs a few user experience tweaks.
Right. 4 key takeaways. First, frame the word families as mnemonics, not science. Be honest that the Quo family is a memory hack.
That transparency builds trust.
Second, provide clear metrics for body sense. Don't just talk about goosebumps. Give them a real test, like the speed challenge, to see if they're actually using their visceral brain.
Make the invisible measurable. Yep.
Third, space out the vocabulary to save the narrative. Don't dump every synonym for dirty into one dishwashing scene. Let the story breathe.
Prioritize that movie in the mind.
And finally, gamify the repetition. Add active tasks like shadowing and prediction to combat boredom. Give the modern learner a reason to pay attention, because forced listening isn't enough anymore.
An excellent summary. This project has so much potential, and these changes could really take it from a powerful theoretical system to a practical user-friendly tool.
Absolutely. The groundwork is all there. The novel, the word ecology, it's seriously impressive. These adjustments just help ensure the user can actually make it through the 3-year journey.
We would love to see a revised chapter of New Harbor City Dreams that balances that story and glossary a bit more naturally. Please refine the explanations and send it back to us. Thanks for listening to The Critique.